When I was at Columbia and students were rioting and took over offices and classes, and the administration said, "Can we bring you Pepsi or Coke?" And I remember thinking, I'm 20 years old, they're 55, and that's their reaction to a fascist takeover of their own university?
Dennis, in Still the Best Hope, you write of leftism as one of the three great competing faiths and religions or value systems in the world. So let's talk a little bit about that. What the idea of leftism as a religion brings to our understanding of leftism. I mean, in the first place, I guess a natural question would be, who is its prophet? We know who...
I devote time to this very complex question. As I say, if you ask a Christian, what is Christianity? They can say, read the New Testament. If they're a Catholic, read the Church Fathers. If you're a Protestant, read the Bible. Have a great day.
Right.
But that's not true for the leftist. It might have been theoretically true at some time, read Marx and Engels, but it's not true any longer. No, but even the New York Times editors haven't read Marx and Engels. I would say read the New York Times editorial page for a year, and I'm very serious. I think that would tell you what leftism stands for. But there is no holy writ as such. And part of the problem, and this is huge, is that it is, and this is very rarely pointed out, leftism is feelings-based, much more than reason-based. There is a veneer of intellectuality, a very thick veneer, if you will, but it is overwhelmingly feelings-based. That's why compassion is such an operative word in leftism. We feel for the poor, we feel for the downtrodden, we feel for the underdog. I'll give you an example. Why are the Palestinians preferred to the Israelis on the left? Everything that the left proclaims is upheld far more in Israel. Separation of judiciary, freedom of the press, gay pride days, women's rights. None of that exists amongst Israel's enemies. None of it. So why do they prefer the Palestinians? It's emotional. They're the underdog. Not because they're right. They're the underdog. The downtrodden. That's all you need to hear is, the disenfranchised. It's a world of feelings, of pablum. That is why, you know how I learned this? And you don't learn this from textbooks on the left. You learn it from real life. One of the first times, I've been lecturing since I was 21 years old. And I gave a lecture at about 24, 25 at a synagogue in New Jersey. And because I grew up in New York, and I moved to California when I was 27. And a woman got up after my talk, and she said, "I'm offended by what you said." I don't remember what it was, and I remember thinking, because I'm a very open guy, and I may be wrong, but I don't have guile. And I thought, gee, what did I say that could have offended her? And so I looked at her and said, what did I say that offended you? And then she said what I said. I said, so wait, so you disagree with what I said, but why are you offended? I mean, I actually asked it honestly. Why would you be offended by something you differ with? And I didn't know the answer for years until I realized, of course, because it's all feelings-based. So if you differ with me, I am hurt.
Now, you must have read a lot of Marx.
Well, not a lot
in
of
your
Marx.
educational
and I'll tell you,
career?
I specialized in communist affairs, but reading a lot of Marx would have no furtherance of my knowledge of communist countries and their politics, which is what I studied. But I read some, of course.
I spent, as a sophomore in college, I spent 9 weeks reading Karl Marx in a course about other things. I mean, but this was how important Marx was
That's right.
in the
That's
70s.
That's correct.
In those days.
Yes.
But is the, I wonder how much of a lingering influence you think he does have on contemporary leftism, even though no one is explicitly
he does.
a Marxist anymore. I noticed that in your analysis of leftism, which is quite good in your book, you begin from materialism.
Yes.
I mean, it's really an anti-Marxist, from your point of view.
Right.
It's a kind of quasi-Marxist
account
of the
materialism,
left.
you're very astute. The materialism, that means matter is the only reality, does emanate from Marx. Mm-hmm. That's central. That's correct. In that sense, and in the egalitarian impulse, mm-hmm. Marx is alive.
And in the atheism, the anti-religiosity.
Well, that's materialism
which is
and atheism.
The flip side of materialism,
exactly.
we could say. Now, is it, as the left, the worldwide left, lost faith in Marx and in Engels and Lenin and the whole 9 yards, what, if anything, have they repaired to since then? I mean, is feelings the alternative to?
Well, even with him,
dialectical
it was
materialism.
Dialectical. Give me a break. Oh, don't start.
I just wanted to say that so you could feel nostalgic.
Yes, I am. Okay, 1 minute. I got to recover because this was a classic example of a veneer of science, mm-hmm. or as they say they said in Soviet Union, nauchny atheism, scientific atheism. Mm-hmm. Everything was nauchny, everything was scientific. Right. So it's scientific that countries will go from feudalism to capitalism to socialism. So Marx confronted but America, he said, was exceptional. That's ironic that some
right.
say that they got the phrase of exceptionalism from Marx. Anyway.
Or Stalin, I've heard that too.
Oh, is it? Yeah. Oh, that's right, Stalin. You're right, yeah. Stalin. Yes, yes, yes. Because Stalin realized we didn't have to go through that phase. Okay, be that as it may. So tell me the question again.
Is the emphasis on feelings?
Yes.
Is that something new on the left?
No,
is that
it's
a
not
replacement
new.
for Marxism?
It's not
in some
new,
way?
but you see, we are also post-Freud. Mm-hmm. It's not just post-Marx. And so feelings. And by the way, I think Freud was a genius. I just want to make that clear. I do. Mm-hmm. But Freud alone doesn't explain much. Freud, with other things, is very useful. And yes, so feelings, in effect, it's like therapy writ large, like the mm-hmm. self-esteem movement, mm-hmm. which the left created. Again, it's a feeling. How do you feel about yourself? See, the traditional Jew or Christian never asked how you felt about yourself. Yes. They asked how you behaved.
Right.
That's the only thing that matters. I don't care about how you feel about yourself. When raising my children...
Shouldn't you feel guilty?
Yes, I should. Correct. I'll never forget when my son was about 10, and in the good Prager tradition was on a team that never won a game, and he got a trophy. And I said, Dave, what'd you get the trophy for? Your team came in last. And with total seriousness, he said, for playing. He should have said for breathing, yes. Because you didn't even have to play. If you merely exhaled and inhaled, right. You got a trophy. Right. This is a classic left-wing idea. And by the way, all of values. How do you feel about not returning a purse mm-hmm. to the girl who lost it in the class? That's values clarification that the left made up. How do you feel about right and wrong? And the one I've asked now since I'm 25, would you save your dog or a stranger first if both were drowning? This is one of the most important questions you can ask, because 2/3 of Americans today will not say that they will save the stranger. I love my dog. I don't love the stranger. Why would I save? I have 2 dogs. I love them more than strangers. But there's no question on earth I would save the stranger, right. Because I have a religious value that human beings are created in God's image and animals are not. End of issue. So my feelings are of no importance.
That's also an example of natural law, by the way. You know the difference between a dog and a human being.
That's correct.
And
you mentioned that earlier.
That's right.
That's correct. Yes, yeah. That's right. But that's gone because it's all feelings.
Now, you make a distinction which you don't perhaps elaborate on. So here's a chance to elaborate on it between liberal and leftist.
Yes.
And you were one, and there's something about the anti-communist liberalism that attracted you
very much.
But then it seems to have become a vanishing species.
Yes, it did. It's sort of like the mainstream Protestant churches. They were beautiful and mainstream, but they weren't strong enough to withstand the onslaught of leftism. So you now have basically leftism with a cross in many churches, just as you have leftism with a Torah in many Jewish synagogues. And so that is the power of leftism to take over, in this case, liberalism as well. And so liberal, which was a beautiful word, which wanted lower taxes, which wanted more liberty from government, which wanted a strong and robust American defense, is now all taken over by conservatism. Liberalism the word has been usurped by the left, but the values have actually been imbibed by the right.
So was Franklin Roosevelt in your...
No, he was a leftist.
A leftist,
but not in foreign policy. He spoke frequently about defending Christian civilization. No person on the left would talk that way now.
That's right.
But domestically, he was a leftist.
And the famous D-Day prayer,
yes,
which he uttered, which is a big thing and probably not politically correct these days. What about LBJ?
LBJ was still the liberal with the left. He was domestically left-wing, and internationally he was liberal. I would say that LBJ and the Vietnam War did to liberalism what World War I did to nationalism in Europe.
Right. So is JFK the best example of the liberal tradition that you approve of?
Yeah. Lower taxes, robust foreign policy, inaugural address, we will pay any price to spread liberty. You don't have that today. America, come home. George McGovern, America, come home. And by the way, you have the libertarian right, which is identical to the left on foreign policy.
And what's the transition point between good liberals and bad leftists in American politics? Is that the 60s? Or
I think it is the 60s. The new left took over liberalism. I remember when I can't date it, but I can tell you the event that made me realize it was over. When I was at Columbia and students were rioting and took over offices and classes, and the administration said, "Can we bring you Pepsi or Coke?" And I remember thinking, I'm 20 years old, they're 55, and that's their reaction to a fascist takeover of their own university. And from then to today, if I know that you are a college administrator, I assume you are morally weak unless proven otherwise.
Right, when liberals wouldn't defend liberalism on campus,
that's
free
correct.
Speech.
That's exactly right.
You knew
it was over.
That's right. That's right.